everyone. Welcome back again to Stripe Dialogues. Today we have with us Major General Chaturvedi, A.K. Chaturvedi. He is our Vice Chairman and also our mentor as far as the Stripe Dialogue is concerned. We are indeed lucky to have him with us. Welcome to you, sir.
Thank you.
Today we will be. I should also like to share with the audience that he has had a major accident in which his actually one of the legs is in cast, but yet he has braved the injury and sitting with us for this particular show. And for that, I am extremely grateful to you, sir. Hope you recover fast. We would be discussing today, as the flyer would have told you all, about Europe. And why are we discussing about Europe? Two things have happened. First time after Second World War, European continent is facing or witnessing a war which is of such a large scale and magnitude. The war has impacted the entire globe. All the countries have been affected by this particular war, uh, but Europe is probably the one which is facing the main brunt. Because of this, and also if you take the COVID-19, which preceded the war, I think Europe has been the worst sufferer as far as the global situation is concerned, and it is, to my mind, facing multiple crises of energy, food, internal security, trade, uh, and including even the defense sector of Europe has is facing a severe problem. It is in fact on its extremities as far as manufacturing is concerned, in order to cope up with the Ukrainian demand to match up to the Russian offensive. With that, I will not take any further time, sir, and uh, I will ask you the first and the foremost issue which has been in front of Europe is that its energy needs were almost 35% dependent on Russia. All that has come crashing down because of the sanctions imposed by the so called US driven West. How do you think this has impacted the European countries? Especially, I'm talking of Germany, France, and even UK and other countries which are which were totally dependent on the Russian oil and gas.
Uh, uh, Dushyant, a very relevant question, and one has to see a little bit of go back and say kind of a then extrapolate. You see, energy is the European economy essentially over the years had been either service oriented or manufacturing oriented, and that too high end of manufacturing. Now, for that, energy was needed. Energy was also needed by them for comfort because winters are quite severe. Now, at some point of time, they had Germany as well as France both had a lot of nuclear energy, but they took a decision to go green. And once they decided to go green, then they kept reducing the nuclear dependence. Now, today the situation was just before the war that about 42% of Germany's needs were met by renewables, and little less was France. France was smarter; they did not dismantle all their nuclear assets, but Germany has got today only just three nuclear assets. So balance about 40% was coming from Russia, and in that oil was about say 42%, and coal they were getting coal also. Now, when suddenly in March 2022, the sanctions were imposed, and thereafter, sometime in September, that Nord Stream first, Germany refused to ratify Nord Stream 2, which would have met all the needs of 110 cubic meters of gas. It was not the Nord Stream 1 and 2 was sabotaged also, though nobody came to know, but there are a lot of speculations, and people are going to that extent that it is going to even US, that they have sabotaged it. Now, so that having got closed, so how to meet that shortage of energy. Now, they have just 9% of, uh, say, lignite, other than coal, which I mean, other than renewables, which they have. Now, it is highly polluting. Lignite is highly polluting. So, what they started doing, from Norway, some from Belgium, and to an extent, they have started importing it from even US. Now, US has their own personal interest because over a period of time, US has become energy surplus because of the shale gas advent. So they want to sell, but the cost is substantially high. So energy which was coming about, say, 6.1 cents per cubic feet is now becoming almost 20 cents per cubic feet. So now they have
Okay.
started going for LNG. So this has given a tremendous amount of, say, inflation. Say 10.64 is the inflation on an average. Now, with this kind of a thing, the issue is becoming that cost of living is becoming almost 300%. So, therefore, with all these things, when you go for LNG, the cost of LNG is substantially higher than the normal gas, natural gas, as compared
Yeah.
to natural gas. LNG is quite, because, you know, to establish a LNG terminal, it costs nothing short of $10 billion, and $40,000 per day is the cartridge charges of the ship in which it comes. So it will be exorbitant cost. Now it will impact the production capability, and overall economy will suffer. So that is what the status is. Energy is very important, and this is how it is impacting.
I have a question here related to energy, sir. There was a talk going on that come winters, I mean, I'm talking of the previous winters of 2022, come winters, the European continent will feel the heat of the reduced inflow of oil and gas from Russia. But somehow this problem got
They
managed
weathered.
by
They
they
weathered.
how did they manage it, sir? Could you throw some light so that people
Yes.
would understand?
No, that is where they initially went to Norway, to Belgium, and one more country. Let me just see. Somewhere I have noted it down. Norway, Belgium, and Netherlands. Netherlands
Yeah.
also supported them. So they have got certain gas, and that gas came quite handy to them. And till about September, October, till one was damaged due to sabotage. Certain gas was coming, and that's why, if you recall, last year it was Germany which was not very sanctions on energy, because they were ill prepared. And by some estimates, they are thinking that now they will try to go more and more heavily into renewables and hydrogen. This is another area which they are exploring. But last year, indeed, they had a problem. And the cost was, as I said, it went up from 6 cents per cubic meter to 20. So, therefore, people had to uh, suffer quite a lot. And production, in any case, suffered. And that's how the inflation went up and the cost of living also went up. So, they just somehow, they had no choice. And US, about, say, 12% of their energy needs were met by gas needs were met by US also. But
Absolutely.
the cost is kept going up. So that is what,
I,
and they are
I,
not so
I,
much dependent on, say, Middle East.
I would say, sir, there were three lucky things also which happened to them. First of all, the winter was not as harsh as people expected it
Yes,
to be. That was the first point. Second point was, sir, I think the Indians went out of the West Asian market and depended heavily on Russia, so that oil got freed up, and the Europeans were able to take oil from the Middle East.
yes. Some spot purchase
However,
they did. Yes, from Middle East
yeah,
also they did some spot purchase.
yeah. However, what happened was that the cost of these oil produced was very high. In fact, they spent almost 400 billion euros last year, which is almost similar to the previous year as far as expenditure goes.
Economy shrunk by 1%.
Yeah, but
And
the
by
problem was,
IMF
yeah,
data says that import is rising.
correct,
IMF and World Bank both data said import is rising and export is declining because nothing is getting produced. So that's why
correct.
it is impacting very, very heavily. Almost 1% of the GDP is suffering. In fact, many of these countries this year suddenly, because of other areas, they've started showing some improvement in the growth rate. Otherwise, last year it was all negative.
In fact, sir, it is very interesting to note that despite these sanctions, the Russian economy almost managed its level of GDP, which it was earlier having. It had a very marginal dip in 2022, and I believe it is projected to rise by about 0.73 percent in the next year.
Yes, last year it was almost the figure. I'll just give you the figure. It
It
was
was
about say
almost same.
2% drop,
Yeah,
minus five. This last year 2.1% was dropped. Growth rate was dropped, but
yeah,
and total shrinking of the GDP was about say 2%. But
yeah,
this year they have bounced back because what has happened, that a lot of that Indian route which they have taken, it has
yeah.
helped them to India and China, because world over these are the two countries which are guzzler of gas and oil. So that is coming to these two countries, and that's why they gave very, very high say kind of a discount. Now they are reducing it to $4, but otherwise it was almost say 40% discount, 25 to 30% discount they were giving to India. And India was refining because India has got surplus refining capability. So this
Absolutely,
refined petroleum and diesel was given to the world market. India made good
yes,
money, and that
absolutely.
is one thing which happened.
So we can take this very important aspect from this first issue is that while the Russians maintained their trade levels and maintained their GDP level, it was the Europeans who suffered the most and possibly had to pay a lot. I'm coming down to the next question is about the trade, sir, with China, because Europe had one of the highest trade with China as far as trade market was concerned. Do you think this market also got affected and EU had to suffer inflationary trends in its continent, especially
Yes,
Germany?
yes, s- substantially. You know, if you recall, this year, beginning of the year, Olaf Scholz and
Yeah,
Pedro Sanchez of Spain, they both visited initially Germany, say China. Then Macron, along with Ursula von der Leyen, they also went. And China is very smart. Overall, you know that import from EU to China is just about 9% of their overall trade, and export from China, that is import from China, is about say 20%.
that's
So
right.
now China has again made a kind of a differentiation between Western Europe and Eastern Europe. So what they have done, like France, they have supported, because France gave them say that they are going to buy 160 Airbus, and they will be made in Tianjin, not in France. So this helped France to get a good deal. Germany, because of the say relations, and Germany, in any case, they realized that Germany is so. China is trying to make a separation between EU, CEEP, that is Central and Eastern Europe versus China. So that is a new committee they have made, and they have, to all those smaller countries they are giving support, and to EU as a whole they are not supporting their efforts.
Yeah,
So it
in fact, if you see the graph here, sir, you will find that China's trade has also dropped drastically because of the war in the Europe, sir. And
yes,
Europe had to suffer because of this drop in trade because its main support base was coming from China as far as commodities and
from
other
China.
aspects. So,
And more than one thing in this case, or Dushan, we need to take into account lot of say basic raw material is from China to EU, and technology from EU to China, and that is where. So that is why there was a drop, because China initially was not giving all that, and China's credibility in any case is low with everyone, and now in this biggest, my sense is the biggest loss is strategic autonomy of EU. Now they are becoming more and more dependent on US. Now
yes,
they try to latch on to US, and that is something uh, which should, earlier it was like India has maintained their strategic autonomy, that they, with Russia and China both, we are Russia and US, we are both doing. Same is China doing. Uh, China, the 12-point agenda point they have also given also, and but EU is no longer absolutely independent decision making. They had to
uh,
look to US substantially. That is what has happened because of this loss. And
uh,
in case if you see, uh, uh, the import has to US has, say EU has increased substantially. Netherlands, as much as 26% import is from China. So that is where, and what
so,
EU is supplying to them, they can they can dispense with basic, essentially cars and electronic parts, which they can dispense with. But what
sir,
China is providing to them, they can't do without that.
so there is a
And
connected issue. So,
telecom equipment is one of the major things which they have EU suffering.
then there is a connected point to what you have been saying about the strategic autonomy. It was seen by the US over the past few years that Europe was not really keen on funding the NATO. Do you think
Yes,
that this was a design, some kind of a design done by the US to rope in the EU into NATO, whereby the EU got forced to commit its both funds and equipment and everything, and hence further weaken the European stability, both social as well as economic?
quite substantially. Quite substantially, it is possible, because US has their own. Actually, if you notice, US economy also has suffered, but not that much.
Not
Because
that
of the
much.
war, substantially that five big players in the so, say arms and equipment market are all US. And that thing did not suffer. It did not
Another,
their energy market did not suffer. So
yeah, yeah,
now overall, US was not as affected as Europe. Because Europe,
okay.
if we see the overall problem, there are many other problems also. And with this kind of a thing, their economies have started going down. And that is why, if you notice, Germany is in recession. Italy and France are barely making above the level. UK is in the threat of going into recession. So that is why they did not have funds. So now they are dependent more and more onto US. So that's why it was one of the ways for them to say twist the tail of EU to contribute to uh, NATO funding
Uh,
substantially.
Another factor which has impacted the EU has been the migration, large scale migration of refugees from Ukraine. Almost 6 billion people have migrated from Poland, and most of them have gone to the European countries. The heading the list is, of course, Russia and Poland, but Russia and Poland, by and large, being the neighboring countries, and the Russians who have gone to Russia, so that dynamics can be explained separately. But what is hurting is about a million worth in Germany, Czechoslovakia, UK, about zero point 0.2 million, and Spain about zero point 0.2 million. Now, all this is impacting further on the economy. Do you think that this particular phenomena is going to end will these guys continue to settle in Europe, or they will be sent back to Ukraine as and when the situation, or will this pressure on Europe force them to go ahead and tell Ukraine to start negotiating with Putin? Now, this is something which I thought maybe you could throw some light on it.
Actually, the first thing is Russia should be separated from this list, because the moment you say that refugees, the entire Donbass is with them. So
Yeah,
therefore, those Ukrainians are also counted in that. So therefore,
correct.
Russia is, and the percentage of population wise, if we say, the countries which have suffered max is Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia,
German,
and Moldova.
oh,
And
even
the interesting part is that Moldova and Slovakia have got very small size of economy. Moldova's economy is just $113 billion, and whereas Slovakia is just about 300. So now with this kind of a say figure, most impacted countries are these five countries. That is first part, and their economy can ill afford this kind of a thing. I mean, we say about Germany. Germany is just only about 1% of Ukrainian men, because Germany is smarter in this case. Germany has not allowed many amounts of 1 million, as you have said, is the figure, and other UK and all 0.3% and all those things. So that doesn't matter much. Only thing the France had about, say, again, France did not take many, just 0.1% of their overall population.
yeah,
So
true.
therefore, these five countries, Poland's economy will definitely suffer. If you notice, their economy has Moldova's economy last year was growth rate was minus 5.9%. Suddenly, they can't even afford this kind of a ingress of people. So therefore, the economy is about to collapse, and this is to the advantage of Russia, because Europe cannot help them. Russia being next door, Russia can help, and it will help Russia strategically, because that will help him to get the total northern border, northern say part of Black Sea under their control, and Odisha
So,
will also be kind of they can dominate even Odisha. So
so give,
therefore, Moldova, that is one thing. Now, Slovak and Czech Republic are quite close to, say, Ukraine. So they are also impacted, and they are smaller economies. And the people coming to them, they can ill afford this kind of a manpower, and their economies are just about to be coming out. The overall growth rate of EU this year is just 1%. So therefore, there's no money, there's no jobs. So that has impacted them substantially. Now, your second part of your question, will they go back or they settle down? The way Ukrainian and more it gets stretched, the period for it to build up again to its original shape would be nothing short of a decade. And you think these fellows will like to go back? They would like to just get assimilated with the local people.
yeah,
So
that's right.
therefore,
That's right.
my
So,
sense is that Europe is getting the term which I used yesterday, running out at both the ends. So
so
therefore,
what?
they are
Uh, uh,
losing out on economically. They are losing out because after all, so many more feeds to eat,
yeah.
mouth to feed, and where to get this money from? Where to get these food grains from? Food grain was essentially was from Ukraine and Russia. Russia, you have banned. Ukraine
Given,
is devastated. So
right.
next is
So
going to be a food crisis in Europe substantially. There's going to be, besides energy crisis, food crisis would be substantial. And since there are no enough jobs, because as we have discussed in last part of the question, that because of it, without energy, the industry is going to suffer. Industry is suffering, so job losses would be there. Job loss. And if you notice, last 15, 20, 30 years, if you see, the world was, the problem areas were North Africa, say Asia, uh, certain portion of East, you can say. So now, with this kind of a thing, Europe was having a good time, and they had their population was also rising below 20 years less, because people are becoming individualistic, and 65% and more were rising. Now, so everyone, whether you do job or you don't do a job, you get your unemployment allowance. So,
Correct.
will economy be able to survive this kind of a thing? Is a big question. And to
So,
my
so,
mind,
so leading from this, sir, that since their economy is under tremendous pressure because of multiple reasons, as we have already discussed, do you think that they will, they are really going to admit Ukraine into NATO, given the fact that if they do that, it is going to be a further whammy onto the European countries?
you know, the Western Bloc did a mistake when they did not act the way they acted now in 2014. And they allowed these 9 years or 8 years, because war started last year, for Russia to do two things. A, consolidate its position in Eastern Europe, Ukraine, that is Donbas area, and Crimea. That is one part of it. Second is all the sanctions which were there, and because of SWIFT, they have been banned. They have been able to develop an alternate system. So the Russian economy did not suffer uh, as they expected. So now,
Right.
as a result, what has happened now, when they started going now they have to do some very, very drastic measures. Now, drastic measures, when they started trying to take it, Russia is well prepared for this kind of a thing. Earlier, what we were say anticipating that Russia wanted this war to finish early. Now, my sense is that probably Russia wants to stretch it, because then they'll come on to the knees. Now, two very interesting developments in recent times. A, that Biden has said that we will not, Ukraine is not ready for entry into NATO.
NATO, I think some
Now, this is
sensible.
the condition on which Russia started the war. So now,
Correct.
when you are say, that means some kind of a back channel must have already commenced.
Correct.
Secondly, next US elections, because from January onwards there will be too much of now onwards little less, but another 2 3 months time, too much of emphasis on the election, and be it Democrats or be it, in any case, if Republicans come, the war will not continue. They will take something precipitative actions, like something like what they did in Afghanistan or something, because they have realized that they also cannot ill afford it, because giving cluster bomb was indication of that now we are wiping the bottom.
Absolutely.
Their own,
Absolutely.
say, you can't, I mean, the kind of say the support they have given to Ukraine, you can't do more. Their war reserves are getting affected. Tomorrow, if China tries to show eyes in Taiwan Strait or something, their capability would be quite seriously impacted. So
Absolutely.
US has started having second thoughts.
So,
EU, as we have discussed last time, that strategic autonomy they have mortgaged to US. The moment US says, they will also come on board, because Germany, especially Germany, is having a severely rough time on energy front. And what we call land grab, afford. We will continue to take energy from Russia, because they
okay,
just cannot afford it. So
okay,
therefore,
sir.
with all these things are pointing to one very interesting thing, that Zelensky at some point of time will have to realize that it is not neither in their interest. And Zelensky, what Zelensky? Zelensky, the moment US says, he'll have to listen to it. And
Absolutely.
as yesterday you had concluded very nicely that probably northern front is getting built up, and which is a
Correct.
threat.
Correct.
Zaporizhia, they have already they have spread the word that Kherson, Zaporizhia, they are not going to leave.
Correct.
Now, the Ukraine is going to get into a kind of a U, and the way they have Kharkiv, Sumy, they had been ponding the
Correct, sir.
entire Donbas area. They will, and it will be that notion of war which you say. It is in the interest of everyone. that they say, okay, Donbass, some kind of a independence, not independence, but autonomy. Crimea
Okay.
remains with, because Crimea, Russia will never leave. There is no question of, Crimea is out of question, any kind of a discussion. And in any case, if you go into the history, Crimea was presented by Nikita Khrushchev to Ukraine in 1954. And Nikita
Right.
Khrushchev was Ukrainian. So
Absolutely. So
therefore, Crimea had traditionally been part of Russia
that's
only.
a
So therefore, Crimea
that's
will
another
not go. Donbass, they will have a discussion.
absolutely. So Crimea
And
is another
as
story, sir.
such,
Crimea is another story which we can discuss, and some people say that it was a conspiracy between Khrushchev and he had a long-term vision that probably Ukraine will separate out from the USSR. But that leaving aside, sir, so one thing is very clear that the NATO is not going to admit Ukraine in a hurry. That issue is going to be out. But
in any
last
case,
question.
that chapter, there's section 10. Who is, even US is saying that Ukraine is not ready.
That's right, sir. So
तो बात ही खत्म
so
हो गई, consensus तो है ही नहीं.
That's right. So
There's no consensus.
consensus is eluding, sir. Last question, which before we conclude, because we're going slightly behind time, is that France is seeing a lot of internal disturbances, and that is in fact spreading to the other parts of Europe, especially
Yeah.
Belgium, etc. So in Belgium, Netherlands, and those parts of the Europe. How do you think that this kind of a situation has arrived in France? Is it purely demographic changes, or there are some other factors which have led to such a massive scale of protest? I mean, never seen in the European continent in the past few decades. In fact, I would put it that way. Can you throw some light quickly on this, because this has an
Yeah.
impact on India as well? Because this has an impact on India as well. Because whatever story is emerging there, India also has similar fault lines. So you may like to just briefly, without being political about it, say a purely
No, no, no political. You know,
purely
the Europe,
analytical analysis, sir.
yes, European issue is a different, because other than France, all other countries accepted diversity as such. They did
Okay,
not
sir.
say that you should become Englishman. Whereas
Correct.
French always insisted, right from after the 1789, when the revolution took place, that liberty, equality, uh, when they talked of these things, they said that once you are in France, you have to be a Frenchman. One. So many a times it is in conflict with the faith of people. A.
Okay.
B. Uh, when they started getting these fellows, that the in earlier what I had mentioned, that below 20 years, the population is declining of Europe, and 65 years and above is rising. Now
Okay.
that means the local people are not available for the jobs they wanted.
Okay.
Now when they started saying the people are required, and the overall population growth is negative, or not negative, but it is not even the replacement. Say, highest is Jews, 2.1%. The population growth rate in France is 2.1%. Hindus are 0.4%.
Okay.
Muslims are 2%, 2.1%. So therefore, the Muslim population is rising. All other, even Christianity, it is believed that in 2020, it was 76%. And by 2050, the Christians in Europe, I say France, would be 65%. Now, with this kind of a thing, now once A is this part, that they allowed a lot of people to come because they wanted people to do jobs, and they started giving them citizenship. But besides them, a lot of illegals also came.
Yes.
Illegals are very, very high. And that is why the population growth in France alone of Muslims, it is 5.5% and is likely to go to 8.8%. So almost 10% say if you take into illegals also, it's about 10%. Now, because of earlier, as we have discussed, that there are a lot of job losses. There are no jobs. So all these illegals, when they manage to sneak into, say, France, they want to, say, live in ghettos, because their getting caught is much less possible as compared to someone who is a bona fide citizen. So therefore, this kind of a thing is a very, very explosive proportion, and this is resulting into job losses, living conditions not good, having come here and having not being allowed to practice their religion the way they want.
Yeah,
Now,
that is
in this case, another very interesting part, from North Africa or Arabic countries, only those fellows have migrated who otherwise had nothing much to do in those places. So they are all those, you can say, good for nothing people. So, and once they came to France or something, European principles that if you don't have a job, you will get a unemployment allowance. So ये तो बढ़िया, बहुत अच्छी सिचुएशन हो गई, काम भी नहीं करो और अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट अलाउंस भी लो. And so
but sir,
these are the things
here
which are.
Sir, here I would like to just inform to you that most of the Western countries are giving unemployment allowances
Allowance.
to people who are losing jobs. Not to everybody, but people who are losing job, who are getting laid out, whether it is Canada, whether it is America, whether it is other European countries. So this kind of a benevolence has started in the West, which possibly, to my mind, is going to be at the detriment of their economy as
And
also.
your economy is not growing, but this bill of providing unemployment allowance is rising. 8.8% is official figure today.
Correct.
8.8% is official figure of, say, Muslims in France. But
Right.
actually, it must be something like 10 to 12%, because if you add all those illegals there, which are quite substantial, I have a figure somewhere here. Illegal France has got almost 0.4 million people. That means 4 lakh people are there in addition to those who are there. But it must be a much higher figure to my mind, because the biggest problem with France is they don't make a census based on religion, caste, creed. Everyone is a French. So
Yeah.
therefore, these are all estimated figures. I mean, I
Yes.
won't say that these are very, say, reliable figures, but they are estimated figures. So my sense is that this is what is going to make a lot of difference. Now, if you want to juxtapose for India, India's situation is different. India, actually, these Rohingyas who had come, and earlier Bangladeshis, I don't think that has reduced substantially. It is Rohingyas are now entering. And they are, because they are, as in one of the things which we had discussed, that they are coming and more into Assam, which is population density is low, and they can get. But then good thing about that place is that local SMA Muslims, they detest them as much because they are eating into their jobs.
Yeah.
West Bengal
That's
is a
a
different case. If, that's it. West Bengal is a different case, because that's why West Bengal also does not allow them to hang on there. They pushed, and no wonder that's why Rohingyas you find Noida, Bhogal in Delhi, or going up to Jammu and
a,
Jaisalmer. So
a very
this
interesting
kind of a thing, they are trying to push them into all over, and
anecdote that I would
their
like to
growth
just.
is.
Sir, I would like to share a very interesting data on this issue. Yesterday, I believe Madras University conducted a food stall show, culinary show, in which Rohingya food were also, displayed. So what I'm saying, they have not even gone only to the north; they have gone right down up to the oceans in the
Down
south.
south.
Yes, sir. So
No, no,
so the spread is
that's
very
why
rapid.
if you notice, these days, even in vegetarian restaurants, the names are such that you are getting कि भाई ये तो food which is, say, preferred by Muslims and all those things. So these Rohingyas, like say, termite, they are eating into the vitals of India, and Indian nation will have to take a call on this kind of a thing. I have nothing against, because a genuine Indian Muslim is very much part of us, and there is no question of any kind of a discrimination against him. But these
Correct.
Rohingyas and Bangladeshis, they are stealing the job. Bangladeshi now has reduced quite substantially because unki economy has improved quite substantially. But Bangladesh has got almost 10 million these Rohingyas, and they are quietly pushing them into India. That's the thing. And they are drug carriers. There's so many issues
Yeah,
with
yeah,
them.
absolutely. Sir, the last question, final. What will be the impact on India of European state of affairs today? Because India and Europe are also having a fairly considerable trade with each other. Besides trade, at the global level, we had relationships which were very stable, I would say. But do you think this kind of instability in Europe, this kind of uncertainty in Europe, is going to impact India-Europe relations in the future? Or and how should India manage? Should India come to the help of Europe? I don't know. You could just throw some
No, no.
last.
Why do you think state visit to US? Why do you think that Bastille Day parade invitation to Modi? Why you are prepared to get saffron 100% technology transfer? UK is also trying to go for FTA
So, so
because
it's a
they have realized that market is India.
so it's
They
leverage
have
India,
realized
I
market is
suppose.
India.
So it's leverage India for us.
Yes, it is. It is. At firstly, interesting part is today Russia is also wooing us. America is also wooing.
Yes,
Despite we having not supported Russia, Russia is not because Russia is
I think
apprehensive always of China's intentions,
problem.
because
I would.
this
Yeah.
demographic invasion which can take place in Siberia, and they can make their life quite miserable, and into say Central Asian republics or Kyrgyzstan or Tajikistan, Russia, and which is the say soft underbelly of Russia. So Russia wants to say who India, and America in any case and West wants to do this kind of a thing. So that is why it is, in case if India plays its cards well, because of the huge market, because of the huge technical support system, because of a lot of these, say, things like Micron coming to India, Foxconn coming to India, that will help Europe substantially. Because, and we having, say, we have become competitive to Huawei. We have got 5G our own. We have got now with this kind of a, as you see that what I mentioned, that maximum import from um, China to Europe was telecom equipment and all these related equipment, microchips and all those things. Now that
Right, sir.
supply chain, in case it gets developed in India, with this kind of a thing, India will have a better, say, kind of a, we can provide better support. And that is why, no wonder France has taken a lead. And that if you see that Beverman, she was shown the, I mean, she is now quite, earlier she was anti-Indian. Now she is, I think Sunak has given her a shut up call. So they want FTA in any case, because the FTA comes. So that will be good for UK's economy also. So now
So,
two
sir,
major economies. First of all, Germany is the only one where we have to make a little bit of more effort. But I think that because of the renewables, we have got a very good equation with Germany. Because
so, sir,
renewables, India has got a market of equipment, and Germany has got the technology.
so,
It
sir,
is
really, I
only
think.
their cells which are providing efficiency as much as 37 to 40%. No other, say, solar cells are providing efficiency more than 19 to 20%. So with this kind of a thing, Germany will come also on board. So renewables is a, and that is why if you notice, few years back when Solar Alliance India has made, Germany is part of it. So
So,
therefore, we have got a very good possibility. This Ukraine war is not going to say negatively impact us. It will it will improve the stature of India. And because of Russian and American say support to India, China is not making any effort to go in for Galwan type of situation. Let us be
So,
honest about it.
sir, we conclude our discussion here by saying that it is Macron Micron time for India, as far
Oh
as
yes,
as far as Europe and European crisis is concerned. But we have to work towards doing that Macron Micron kind of a initiative to be leveraged. That is very important. And as the Chinese saying goes, Wai Chi, which means if there is a danger, there is an opportunity. And I think there is an opportunity for Europe, for India, and we should work towards that. Sir, we've got now a lot of questions, sir, and I would straight away dive into those questions so that we can take our discussion quickly forward and finish it as per time, sir. Uh, General Kakkad, of course, says very interesting discussion. Thank you very much, sir. But he has asked a question which we have more or less answered. Impact on Europe economy on supporting Ukraine. How will it impact Europe? I think this question has been answered in a fair amount of
detail
detail, sir.
in detail.
We'll go to the next one, sir. Shritik Kothari, to what extent will Europe have to follow the US, all the while battling inflation and other issues? The average European is bearing the brunt. Ukrainians are dying as they follow US lead in this proxy war. I
Eh,
think sooner or
eh,
later they have to take a call on this and start
you
negotiating.
know,
Your view?
to my mind, Zelensky is not as much a stakeholder in Ukraine as he claims himself to be. You know, the thing is that Donbass, the population was Russian. So he was, and in any case, there are reports from 14 to 18. They used as much as say artillery weapons also against Donbass people and all those things. So therefore, uh, quite a damage they had done. So there's a very major divide between say uh, ethnic Russians in Ukraine, and as you go say east of Dnipro, that
Yeah,
the where Catholic influence starts increasing and the Western influence starts increasing. So therefore, Ukrainian overall are suffering today. What was the main source of revenue for Ukraine? Food grains. Now it is totally on the say mercy of Russia. If 20th July they say no, we will not give you clearance.
yeah,
What will happen to whatever little they are producing now? Second was whatever their production areas were, they were Donbass, and they
yeah,
are all almost devastated.
yeah.
The power situation was good in Ukraine because of Zaporizhia. Zaporizhia is closed now. So Ukraine is having a terrible time, and it will take nothing short of a decade for it to rebuild and cost anything between $1 to $2 trillion. Now,
That's the estimate.
this Biden, I think, have started realizing that this was not the best of the decision, and now his this statement that Ukrainians will not enter the NATO is very indicative of it, and they will try to find some kind of a, as to quote friend Rajiv Narayanan, it's a notion of war. They will try to find somewhere kind of an
Notion
amicable
of
solution.
victories. Notion of
Notion of
victory.
victory.
Okay.
Notion of victory. Now, as far as Europe is concerned, in this whole thing, Europe, because of their poor economic state and because of poor energy state, either they take a call to suffer for some time and get out of this American clutch. But right now, they have mortgaged their strategic autonomy because of the economic support which they are likely to get from US. And to my mind, sooner they take this call, And the first to my mind to take this call would be Germany, and France has already taken a call. They have started building with say China and India. China, there's 160 in Tianjin because Tianjin is getting the jobs for the 160 aircraft which they will be building for France. So with this kind of a, Airbus will get the say royalty and all those things, and France will be making their. So China, France is trying to say dealing their economy from this kind of a thing. Germany will have to do a same thing, and Brexit actually essentially did this kind of a thing by dissociating from EU. So other countries do not matter much. They will have to follow either EU or US. So Europe is a greatest sufferer at the moment, and sooner they realize this, it will be better in their interest.
But leading from one of the points which you said about Germany, our sister think tank in Bangalore, Indus Research, has asked you a question, a, a slightly different or differently oriented question about Germany, and this is very interesting. You may like to express your views, sir. The elephant in the room is Germany, and it is growing proximity to Russia and China. Since Germany is the biggest military and economic power in the Europe, that is needed to stop comments. Now this is something which is a totally different look to the entire discussion which we have had, and I think it's a very interesting question. Your views, then I can also add into it, sir.
Let's sectionize it. Let's sectionize it.
Yeah,
Germany indeed is the biggest economy, $4.4 trillion,
yeah,
though they are in recession, but their intrinsic strength and macroeconomic say parameters are strong. They'll
yeah.
come out sooner than later. And last year, in any case, they had about say 3% of growth rate. So they will come out. That is one part of it. So Germany growing is a good idea. Now, as far as their being military power, they have realized that they will have to develop. They have almost dependent on NATO, but they will have to now take a call whether they should be totally part of NATO or they must become independent. And to my mind, it's a matter of time that Germany will take a call and they'll become independent. Because if you recall, in 70s, France also came left NATO during Charles de Gaulle's time, and it's only Sarkozy's time that they joined back NATO. So therefore, rise of Germany is not detrimental to India. Rise of Germany in conjunction with, say, Russia or China is not detrimental to India. That is what I would like to underline. It may be, say, kind of a threat to, say, France or UK, but definitely not because they have got their own issues also. Their non-ethnic German population has risen as much as 24%. They are managing it so far, but when this blast will take place, one does not know. So they will have to, and in any case, East and West Germany still are not on the same page, despite say 1989 to date. They are still say 44 years, and they are still not on the same page. So they have their own problems, but to my mind, it will grow, and it will not be detrimental to India. If at all, it will be detrimental to anyone. It will be to European countries, not to
and
anyone
more
else. That's
and
what
more
my
Yeah, and more importantly, sir, the US has its own tentacles
yes.
inside Germany. They would not, at any cost, allow Germany to go cozy up with China or Russia in a security
NATO is sitting into Germany. NATO
in
is
a
sitting into the Germany because they realized earlier.
yeah, in a security dialogue, I don't think it is going to be possible. Yes, economically they may be having a little more affinity towards China, that's fine, but I think in a security formation alignment, it may be a very difficult, may not be possible, but you can't say anything. So we will leave it at this, sir, this particular question. I hope it has been answered to some satisfaction. Strive has asked, that is Kanlarpi, to come out on of present EU crisis, please suggest measures to plug the leaks. We partially discussed about it that India has an
I
opportunity. India has an opportunity as far as the European situation is concerned, but we need to work for it. It will not come to us on plate. We have to ensure that
Yes.
we we give the required we create the required environment for these guys to come to us.
And more importantly, you know, one area which I always maintain, India will have to work on two areas differently. One is their capacity building, because and this new NEP is quite substantially helping into it. And second is logistic chain. We will have to invest hell of a lot in, say, that Gatiman should not be within India. It should be, say, even today we are not making, say, mercantile vessels. We should start investing into making these mercantile vessels, which is the necessity first prerequisite. How many, say, ships are India registered? They are all registered abroad, because we don't have that industry still well developed. So, say supply chain, we will have to work on, capacity we will have to work on, and R&D we will have to work on, because in that is the only way to kind of a, India has got, unlike, because if you read all over, that people are realizing that the country which can stand up against China is substantially India. They have kind of identified that. So we will have to live to this reputation, but at the same time, not to be so much going into that warmongering against China or anything. No, no way. We will have to build our own intrinsic strength to remain relevant, and that is why, in case if that happens, we'll have good issues. Now, in this case, RP's one point I will say, in FTA, Sohela Braverman was trying to say that Indian students should not be part of it. Rishi Sunak has agreed that Indians can be part of it. So that FTA negotiations which are happening with UK, this part is coming. And the same thing should be with EU. When we have with EU, that our that then that interoperability will improve. Our say synergies in research, manufacturing will improve. Then that will help substantially.
You're right, sir. I mean, we have to create that ecosystem, that environment, that ease of doing business, or ease of ease of interoperability, etc. Have will have to be capitalized, and we also have a scope for security alignment, which is now being in some form displayed in various exercises like Tarang Shakti, and before that we had Malabar and a whole lot of exercises, Yud
One,
Abhyas.
one, one
So
one more area, that when this chap, Kapil Sibal was HRD minister, he
mhm.
started one foreign language. So a lot of people were learning French, Spanish, German. Now
Yeah,
we have to give an impetus to it in case if we want to. And EU is a area where once the war gets over, we have to start preparing for it. And if we have
absolutely,
enough people trained in these languages, then it will
absolutely.
be so much easy to get into EU countries,
I
because
think
most
that's a
of the
very.
languages are variant of these three languages.
I
So
think you.
four languages: English,
I think
French, and all
you,
those.
you have a very relevant point, sir. We have to go beyond Jawaharlal Nehru University, which has got a language school, but it's not of that scale which can cater for a size like India, and the
No,
interest
we
which.
have to start from school. Start from
Yeah,
school.
that's what I'm saying, sir. So I have seen in some of the countries they make a compulsory kind of learning of a third language or a fourth language which is foreign to that particular country. So which is, in my view, the approach we need to take. A good point which I would like to inform our audience is that our own language school at Pachmani has decided to add a number of languages to the officers and men who are now going to be part of the army, which is a good sign, because now we're going to have so many multilateral exercises, multinational exercises. If we know these languages, I think it will be that much more easier for us to do military diplomacy, to build
Actually,
our
one small aside on this. You know, 23, 24 years back when I was commanding, even that time I sent a boy to Pachmadi to learn
Mhm.
of all languages Tajik.
Yeah, I
Imagine
mean,
25 years back, Pachmadi had, so that means this Pachmadi school of language is ahead of times. And
yeah,
this,
yeah.
and army has been in many of these areas well ahead of times, and
And
rest all have to learn from us. That is
and
there.
many of the veterans are assisting Panchmadi. Plus, the place where I sometimes go as visiting faculty, RRU, has opened a school of international languages, which is teaching Taiwanese, Chinese, Mandarin, and so Tibetan. So they are also, I think, looking at the interests of our country, and then accordingly tailoring their syllabus and curriculum to ensure that I think we are well
No,
prepared
if you
for.
see in NDA there is a language. Now
Absolutely, sir,
we have to
absolutely.
ensure that
But we have
it is not an audit course; it should be credit course.
as a credit course, and after they leave the NDA, they should
And they should
continue with the
continue.
expertise. What happens is, what happens is after leaving the NDA, they just, I mean, there is a total blank on that particular knowledge which they have gathered.
Yes,
I
yes,
think it should
yes. And
continue,
we should language
progress.
experts. We should have.
Correct, correct, sir. So we are coming down to the last question, sir, and that is a comment. It's kind of a comment. US needed to stop realignment in Europe, and it tilts toward the east. I think this point was repeated earlier also. Yes, it's a need, but I feel that there are enough enough tentacles, leverages with the US and the other countries of Europe to ensure that the leaning toward the east does not take place, especially of the big players. Italy and others,
Actually,
it,
one small comment I
the
would like to make
problem,
here.
sir, the problem is not going to be Germany so much as Turkey, which they have to be
Yes.
careful of. Turkey has to be
No,
careful of because Erdogan is working on his own, sir.
no. Dushan, this is what exactly what I was trying to say. For almost, you can say, last 80 years, or definitely, and even for last 200 years, Western Europe has been kind of a, say, First World War onwards. Let's say First World War, so more than 100 years, they had been patronizing attitude that we are the boss and we'll tell you what to do. Suddenly, there's a renaissance in the East. Turkey is the start point of that. Turkey is the start point of that. And this Russia is also not prepared to take this kind of a thing from Western Europe. So, therefore, this kind of a thing and the rise of India and China in the East, in any case, is showing that realignment in the world are very much necessary, and that leaning towards East, Europe, this is, Mackenzie's theory will come very handy. That whoever controls the Eurasian region, and that is
Yeah.
what Eastern Europe and say area, say west of Caspian and Ural River, coming down to say Black Sea, that portion is assuming great importance now
I think,
in
sir,
overall.
uh, uh, I think we've had a very, very interesting discussion. We have done almost 1 hour of non-stop talking, and we hope that our audience has benefited from various issues which came about. As far as Europe is concerned, Europe was not being talked about in our circles. We have been always discussing the US, China, Russia, and our region, South Asia, Southeast
My
Asia.
compliments to you for having identified this subject. This is the subject we should have discussed, and
Yes.
my compliments to you.
So,
Very
so,
well done.
so with that said, I think we will end our show. And once again, request our audience, please like, subscribe, hit the bell icon so that we can come up with even more uh, better subjects, even more. We can get guest speakers from outside so that you benefit much more. We want to establish Strive in collaboration with other think tanks which are there as part of our support system. to make Strive as one of the leading think tanks of North India, at least to begin with, and India wide as and when the time comes for us. But we are taking baby steps, and hope we succeed. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you to you. Jai Hind, sir.
Dushan, just for us, there has been a very old couplet which I'll share,
Yeah,
and it
sure, sir.
was
I mean, your thing cannot end
it,
without a two couplets.
it said, and it can be say kind of a modulated for our discussion. It said, सबसे पहले मर्द बन हिंदोसिता के वास्ते, हिंद जाग उठे तो सारे जहां के वास्ते. So that is what the strive will do, first for
Yes.
India and then for the world.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so very much, sir. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.